And now, in a seasonal co-production between BBC Radio 3 and BBC Radio 4, we present Robert Powell as Ebenezer Scrooge in Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, adapted for voices and orchestra by Neil Brand, featuring Sophie Thompson, Ron Cook, Tracy-Ann Oberman, Patrick Brennan, and the combined forces of the BBC Radio Drama Company, the BBC Singers, and the BBC Symphony Orchestra conducted by Martin Andre. A Christmas Carol was recorded in front of a live audience at the BBC Maida Vale Studios.
London, 1843. The house fronts look black enough, and the windows blacker, contrasting with the smooth white sheet of snow upon the roofs, and with the dirtiest snow upon the ground, which last deposit has been ploughed up in deep furrows by the heavy wheels of carts and wagons, furrows that cross and recross each other hundreds of times when the great streets branch off, and make intricate channels, hard to trace in the thick yellow mud and icy water.
Make a rough but brisk kind of music in scraping the snow from the pavement in front of their dwellings and from the tops of their houses, whence it is mad delight to the boys to see it come plumping down into the road below and splitting into artificial little snowstorms.
Watch yourself, Slippery!
Gutter rings full of ice and snow.
So watch how you go, Joe.
Take a snowball, give a lob.
Watch it fly, catch him on his knob.
Right into his gob, proper job.
Coming through, step aside, pardon you.
Got to catch the grocers just before it closes.
Fruiterers, pan of bivvies, bag of chestnuts.
Weigh 'em in your hand, finest in the land.
Streaming through the door.
Selling so much more.
Another hour more.
Onward to the grocers.
Bag of tea, bag of coffee.
Listen to the chime of the scales.
To the twine and the nails.
And the wrapping paper rolling off the roller.
Cinnamon, candied fruits.
Figs, moist and pulpy.
Almonds and French plums.
Fill up your basket with them. Mary.
Grocer.
Fruiterers.
Smell the coffee. Nearly closing.
Coming through.
Close the shutters.
Pardon you. Cold as iron.
Streets are filling.
Still the snow.
God willing.
Marley was dead. To begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that.
The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner, namely me. I signed it. And Ebenezer Scrooge's name is as good an exchange for anything I choose to put my hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail.
Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood years afterwards above the warehouse door. Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley. But he answered to both names. It was all the same to him.
Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. Secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster.
The cold within him froze his old features. A frosty rime was on his head and on his eyebrows and his wiry chin. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas.
The door of Scrooge's counting house was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, Bob Cratchit, who in a dismal little cell beyond was copying letters.
My master, Mr. Scrooge, had a very small fire, but my fire was so very much smaller that it looked like 1 coal.
But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room. And so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel...
Out!
Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of a strong imagination, he failed.
A Merry Christmas, Uncle, and God save you!
Mr. Fred! Why, he had so heated himself with the rapid walking in fog and frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked.
Humbug.
Humbug! Christmas a humbug, Uncle. You don't mean that, I'm sure.
I do. Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
Come then, what right have you to be so dismal? You're rich enough.
What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money?
Yes?
A time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer.
Yes?
A time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you.
That's true.
Ah! If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
I'm sure I've always thought of Christmas time as a good time. A kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good, and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
Hooray!
Let me hear another sound from you, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation.
Sorry, sir.
Oh, don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow.
I'll see you in hell first.
But why? Why?
Why did you marry?
Because I fell in love.
Because I fell in love. Ah, the one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas. Good afternoon.
I'm sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel to which I have been a party. But I have made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humour to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
A Merry Christmas, Bob, and a Happy New Year to you and all your family.
And to you and yours, Mr. Fred. God bless you.
You're another one. 15 shillings a week and a wife and family talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam.
The lunatic lunatic Cratchit, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let two other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office.
Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley died 7 years ago this very night.
Ah, Mr. Scrooge. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries.
Are there no prisons? No workhouses?
Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body, a few of us are endeavouring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. This is a time, after all, when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
You wish to remain anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
Well, if they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Beyond that, I will not be involved.
You could make a difference.
It is not my business. I understand my business, and it occupies me constantly. Good afternoon.
The hour of shutting up the counting-house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool and tacitly admitted the fact to the expectant clerk in the tank, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put on his hat.
You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose.
If quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient, and it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound.
Wait, it's only once a year.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. Be here all the earlier next morning.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, went down a slide on Cornhill at the end of a lane of boys 20 times in honour of its being Christmas Eve. Then he ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt to play a blind man's buff.
Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read all the newspapers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, went home to bed.
Scrooge's night will be spent alone in yonder.
The cold became intense. At the corner of the court, some labourers were repairing the gas pipes and had lighted a great fire in a brazier, round which a party of ragged men and boys were gathered, warming their hands and winking their eyes before the blaze in rapture.
That's enough. Be gone.
Scrooge lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms in a lowering pile of buildings up a yard, where it had so little business to be that one could scarcely help fancying it must have run there when it was a young house, playing at hide-and-seek with other houses, and forgotten the way out again.
And then, Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, without its undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face.
Ebenezer Scrooge!
It had a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. The hair was curiously stirred, as if by breath or hot air, and though the eyes were wide open, they were perfectly motionless. That and its livid colour made it horrible.
As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again.
Humbug.
On opening the door, Scrooge thought he saw a locomotive hearse going up the stairs before him in the gloom. But up he went, not caring a button for that. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. He had just enough recollection of the face to desire to do that.
Ebenezer Scrooge!
Quite satisfied, he closed his door and double-locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus secured against surprise, he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel.
As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room. It was with great astonishment, and with a strange, inexplicable dread, that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound, but soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house.
A clanking noise, deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door.
It's humbug still. I won't believe it.
His colour changed, though, when he came through the heavy doors and passed into the room before his eyes.
The same face, the very same. Marley in his pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights and boots. But the chain.
The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail, and it was made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel.
His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see the 2 buttons on his coat behind.
How now? What do you want with me?
Much.
Marley's voice, no doubt about it.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who were you then? You're particular for a shade, I'll give you that.
In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Can you sit down?
I can.
Do it then.
There was something very awful in the spectre's being provided with an infernal atmosphere of its own. Scrooge could not feel it himself, but this was clearly the case, for though the ghost sat perfectly motionless, its hair and skirts and tassels were still agitated, as by the hot vapour from an oven.
You don't believe in me?
I don't.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than the grave about you.
Scrooge held on tight to his chair to save himself from falling in a swoon.
Oh, mercy! Dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?
Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not?
I do. I must. But why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad amongst his fellow men, and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world, oh, woe is me, and witness what it might have shared on earth.
You are fettered. Tell me why.
I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you?
Cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds.
Or would you know the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full as heavy and long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have laboured on it since. It is a ponderous chain.
Jacob. Old Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob.
I have none to give. It comes from other regions, Ebenezer Scrooge, and is conveyed by other ministers to other kinds of men. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger anywhere.
Don't be hard on me, Jacob.
Mark me! In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole. Captive, bound, and double-ironed, not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one's life's opportunity misused. Yet such was I.
You were always a good man of business, Jacob.
Business? Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. At this time of the rolling year, I suffer most. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate, a chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer.
Oh, you were always a good friend to me, Jacob. Thank you.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
Is that the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob?
It is.
I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1.
Couldn't I take them all at once and have it over, Jacob?
Expect the second on the next night at the same hour, the third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us.
The apparition walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. It beckoned Scrooge to approach, which he did, and he became sensible of confused noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret. The spectre joined in the mournful dirge and floated out upon the bleak, dark night.
The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in restless haste, and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost.
Whether these creatures faded into mist, or mist enshrouded them, he could not tell. But they and their spirit voices faded together, and the night became as it had been when he walked home. And Scrooge, being much in need of repose, dropped upon the bed and fell asleep upon the instant.
When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavoring to pierce the darkness with his ferret eyes when the chimes of a neighboring church struck 12.
Why, it isn't possible that I can have slept through a whole day and far into another night. It isn't possible that anything has happened to the sun. And this is 12 at noon.
The idea being an alarming one, he scrambled out of bed and groped his way to the window. He was obliged to rub the frost off with the sleeve of his dressing gown before he could see anything. All he could make out was fog and extreme cold.
12 midnight. But what day? Marley warned me of a visitation when the bell tolls 1.
Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn.
It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man viewed through some supernatural medium. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white, as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it.
From the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its duller moments, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past. Rise and walk with me.
It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that bed was warm and the thermometer a long way below freezing. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped his robe in supplication.
I am mortal, liable to fall.
Bear but a touch of my hand upon your heart, and you shall be upheld in more than this.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold winter day with snow upon the ground.
Good heaven. I was bred in this place. I was a boy here.
The spirit gazed upon him mildly. Scrooge was conscious of 1,000 odours floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys, and cares long, long forgotten.
Your lip is trembling. And what is that upon your cheek? A tear?
A pimple. Come on, this way.
You recollect the way?
Remember it? I can walk it blindfold.
Strange to have forgotten it for so many years. They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance, with its bridge, its church and winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them, with boys upon their backs, who called to other boys in country gigs and carts, driven by farmers.
Jimmy Jackson! Mort Ferris! Barney Paddock, I know them all. They were my friends.
Why was he rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them? Why did his cold eye glisten and his heart leap up as they went past?
They left the high road by a well-remembered lane and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick with a little weathercock-surmounted cupola on the roof and a bell hanging in it. It was a large house, but one of broken fortunes, for the spacious offices were little used. Their walls were damp and mossy, their windows broken, and their gates decayed.
See, there!
The school.
Entering the dreary hall and glancing through the open doors of many rooms, they found them poorly furnished, cold and vast. There was an earthy savour in the air which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight and not too much to eat.
See, it is not quite deserted. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still.
I know it.
A long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of plain deal forms and desks. At one of these, a small, lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire.
Every latent echo in the house,
Every squeak and scuffle from the mice behind the panelling.
every drip from the half-thawed waterspout in the dull yard behind.
Every idle swing of an empty storehouse door fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence and gave a freer passage to his tears.
I wish,
Yes,
but it's too late now.
what is the matter?
There was a boy singing a Christmas carol in the street last night. I should like to have given him something, that's all.
Let us see another Christmas.
Ah, I have come to bring you home, dear brother.
A little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in, and putting her arms about his neck, kissed him again and again.
Home, little Fan.
Yes, home for good and all. Home forever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. And he said, yes, you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you. And you're to be a man, and are never to come back here. But first, we're to be together all the Christmas long and have the merriest time in the world.
You are quite a woman, little Fan.
She tried to touch his head, but being too little, laughed again and stood on tiptoe to embrace him. Then she began to drag him, in her childish eagerness, towards the door, and he, nothing loath to go, accompanied her.
Little Fan, my dearest sister.
Master Scrooge's trunk being by this time tied on to the top of the chaise, the children bade the schoolmaster goodbye right willingly, and getting into it, drove gaily down the garden sweep, the quick wheels dashing the hoarfrost and snow from off the dark leaves of the evergreens like spray.
Always a delicate creature, whom a breath might have withered. But she had a large heart.
I will not gainsay it, Spirit. God forbid.
She died a woman and had, as I think, children.
One child.
True, your nephew, Fred.
Yes. Yes, she did.
They were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door.
Do you know this place?
Know it. I was apprenticed here.
Yo-ho there, Ebenezer!
At the sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind such a high desk that if he'd been 2 inches taller, he must have knocked his head against the ceiling, Scrooge cried in great excitement.
Why, it's old Fezziwig, bless his heart. It's Fezziwig alive again.
Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, and laughed all over himself.
Yo-ho there, Ebenezer! No more work tonight! Christmas Eve, Ebenezer! Let's have the shutters up before a man could say Jack Robinson.
Oh, you wouldn't believe how I went at it. Charged into the street with the shutters, 1, 2, 3, had them up in their places, 4, 5, 6, barred them and pinned them, 7, 8, 9, and came back before you could have got to 12, panting like a racehorse.
Clear away, all my lads, and let's have lots of room here. Chin up, Ebenezer!
Clear away, there was nothing we wouldn't have cleared away, or couldn't have cleared away, with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off as if it was dismissed from public life for evermore. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night.
In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to Fezziwig's lofty desk and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomachaches.
In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast, substantial smile.
In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable.
In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke.
In came all the young men and women employed in the business.
Away they all went, 20 couples at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old top couple always turning up in the wrong place, new top couple starting off again as soon as they got there, all top couples at last, and not a bottom one to help them. Sir Roger de Coverley, Mrs. F, if you please.
We'll show them how it's done.
And
Advance and retire.
both hands to your partner.
Bow and curtsy.
Corkscrew.
Thread the needle.
And back again to your place.
Scrooge had all but forgotten the ghost, and it was not until now that he remembered it, and became conscious that it was looking full upon him, while the light upon its head burnt very clear.
Fezziwig, such a fine master, such a greatly good man. Oh, my word.
What's the matter?
I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all.
My time grows short. Quick.
Where am I? And who is that woman?
Ebenezer,
Oh, Belle.
another idol has displaced me.
No, spirit, show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me?
Another idol, a golden one.
No!
You fear the world too much, Ebenezer. All your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid reproach. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off, one by one, until only gain, the master passion, engrosses you.
No!
Answer her.
I could not then, I cannot now.
She once thought you were in love. The one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas.
No.
Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so, until in good season we could improve our worldly fortune by our patient industry. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man.
I was a boy.
If you were free today, tomorrow, next year, can I believe that you would choose a dowerless girl? You, who weigh everything by gain.
Spirit.
I release you with a full heart for the love of him you once were.
No! Spirit, remove me from this place.
I told you these were shadows of the things that have been, that they are what they are. Do not blame me.
Remove me! I cannot bear it.
In the struggle, if it can be called a struggle, Scrooge seized the spirit's extinguisher cap and by a sudden action pressed it down upon its head.
exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further, of being in his own bedroom. He had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep.
Scrooge awoke in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore and sat up in bed to get his thoughts together.
Now it comes. The second spirit that old Jacob foretold. Come on, I'm ready. Well, where are you then?
He lay upon his bed, the very core and centre of a blaze of ruddy light which streamed upon him. At last, he began to think that the source and secret of this ghostly light might be in the adjoining room, from whence, on further tracing it, it seemed to shine. He got up softly and shuffled in his slippers to the door. The moment Scrooge's hand was on the lock...
Come in, Scrooge! Come in and know me better, man!
Gleaming berries glisten all around the room.
Bright berries glisten all around the room.
See how the light seems to stream from 1,000 tiny mirrors. 1,000 tiny mirrors.
1,000 tiny mirrors.
In a living green grove.
A living green grove.
Chestnuts, pears, and hams. Figs, mints, steaming punch and apples.
Like a throne, piled up like a throne,
piled up like a throne,
before a roaring fire.
In easy state upon this couch, there sat a jolly giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch, in shape not unlike Plenty's horn, and held it up, high up, to shed its light on Scrooge as he came peeping round the door.
I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You've never seen the like of me before.
Never.
I've never walked forth with the younger members of my family.
I'm afraid I have not. You have had many brothers, Spirit?
More than 1,800.
A tremendous family to provide for.
Ah, they warned me you'd be a tough one. Touch my robe.
The room, the fire, the ruddy glow, the hour of night, all vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning.
Joy to the day that the Lord has made. See glory fill the sky. The best part of man for all to see. While it goes blindly by. The island town of the island bell runs forth its tune of cheer. So good
The steeples called good people all to church and chapel, and away they came, flocking through the streets in their best clothes and with their gayest faces. And at the same time, there emerged from scores of by-streets, lanes, and nameless turnings innumerable people, carrying their dinners to the bakers' shops.
The sight of these poor revellers appeared to interest the spirit very much, for he stood with Scrooge beside him in a baker's doorway, and taking off the covers as their bearers passed, sprinkled incense on their dinners from his torch.
And it was a very uncommon kind of torch, for once or twice when there were angry words between some dinner carriers who had jostled each other, he shed a few drops of water on them from it, and their good humour was restored directly, for they said it was a shame to quarrel upon Christmas Day.
And so it is, God love it, so it is. Grasp my robe, for we will travel far tonight. See here.
Meagre enough dwelling.
For one on a meagre enough salary.
A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us.
God bless us, Father.
Cratchit, my clerk, and his family, my word.
You have never seen them before, I think.
I've been otherwise occupied.
Ah, I know them well.
God bless us, everyone.
What a goose, eh, my dears? I believe there never was such a goose cooked.
That child, who sits very close to his father's side upon his little stool.
Tiny Tim.
His legs are encased.
In metal. He cannot walk.
I had no idea.
And the pudding.
The pudding? What a pudding that was!
It smelt like an eating house and a pastry cook's next door to each other, with a laundress is next door to that.
Tim, where'd you get such ideas?
It's just what I smelt.
Quite right, too.
See how Bob holds the boy's withered little hand in his, as if he loves the child and wishes to keep him by his side, and dreads that he might be taken from him.
My dear, I regard that pudding as the greatest success you have achieved since the glorious day you agreed to be my wife.
Oh, go on with you.
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered, none other of my race will find him here.
No, kind Spirit. Say he will be spared.
What then? If he be like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population.
I raise a toast to Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
I'll not do it.
My dear, the children, Christmas Day.
It should be Christmas Day, I am sure, on which one drinks the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you do, poor fellow.
My dear, Christmas Day.
I'll drink his health for your sake and the day's, not for his. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt.
Mr. Scrooge, God bless him.
Why there now, Tim, that's right. Mr. Scrooge, God bless him, wherever he is.
Touch my gown.
No, I would stay.
No time!
By this time it was getting dark and snowing pretty heavily, and as Scrooge and the Spirit went along the streets, the brightness of the roaring fires in kitchens, parlours, and all sorts of rooms was wonderful.
Here the
flickering of the blaze showed preparations for a cosy dinner, with the hot plates baking through and through before the fire.
There, all the children of the house were running out into the snow to meet their married sisters, brothers, cousins, uncles, aunts, and be the first to greet them.
Here again were shadows on the window blind of guests assembling, and there, a group of handsome girls, all hooded and fur-booted, and all chattering at once, tripped lightly off to some near neighbour's house.
So many people.
They all know me. It is to your shame that they don't know you. Come, let me show you.
Spirit, I am flying! Do not drop me for pity's sake!
Now, they stood upon a bleak and desert moor, where monstrous masses of rude stone were cast about as though it were the burial place of giants, and nothing grew but moss and furze and coarse, rank grass.
What place is this?
A place where miners live, who labor in the bowels of the earth. But they know me. See.
A light shone from the window of a hut, and, passing through the wall of mud and stone, they found a cheerful company assembled round a glowing fire. An old, old man and woman, with their children, and their children's children, and another generation beyond that, all decked out gaily in their holiday attire.
Whither? Spirit! No! Not out to sea!
To sea! From any shore. Look.
Ship.
They stood beside the helmsman at the wheel, the lookout in the bow, the officers who had the watch, dark, ghostly figures in their several stations.
Every man on board, waking or sleeping, good or bad, has had a kinder word for another today than on any day in the year, has shared his festivities, has remembered those he cares for at home, and knows they delight to remember him.
I know. I understand, Spirit. There are none that would delight to remember me.
Oh, no?
He said that Christmas was a humbug, as I live. He believed it too.
More shame for him, Fred.
Why, that must be...
Your niece, the wife of your nephew, Fred.
She is very pretty. Exceedingly pretty.
With a dimpled, surprised-looking capital face, a ripe little mouth that seemed made to be kissed, as no doubt it was, all kinds of good little dots about her chin that melted into one another when she laughed, and the sunniest pair of eyes you ever saw in any little creature's head.
Altogether, I would say she was... provoking, but satisfactory, too.
Oh, perfectly satisfactory.
The table was cleared, the bottle was being passed, and Scrooge's nephew and his wife sat with their friends, too full of Christmas cheer to move.
He's a comical old fellow, that's a truth, and not so pleasant as he might be.
I'm sure he's very rich, Fred. At least you always tell me so.
Oh, avaricious little minx.
But what of that, my dear? His wealth is of no use to him. He doesn't do any good with it. He hasn't the satisfaction of thinking that he's ever going to benefit us with it.
Well, I have no patience with him.
Oh, I have. I'm sorry for him. I couldn't be angry with him if I tried. Who suffers by his ill whims? Himself always. Here, he takes it into his head to dislike us, and he won't come and dine with us. What's the consequence? He loses pleasanter companions than he can find in his own thoughts, either in his mouldy old offices or his dusty chambers. Well, I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not.
He's a witty lad, young Fred. I hadn't noticed.
Come, let us play a game.
Blind man's buff.
Oh, Spirit, may we not stay for a game, please?
My time is...
Spirit, what ails you?
My life upon this globe is very brief. It ends tonight. Tonight at midnight. Hark, the time is drawing near.
I see something strange and not belonging to yourself protruding from your skirts. Is it a foot or claw?
It might be a claw for the flesh there is upon it. Look here.
From the foldings of its robe, the spirit brought forth 2 children.
They were a boy and girl, yellow, meagre, ragged, scowling, wolfish.
Dear God, how horrible. Spirit, are they yours?
They are man's. This boy is ignorance, this girl is want. Beware them both and all of their degree, but most of all beware this boy. For on his brow I see that written which is doom, unless the writing be erased. Doom for all. It is he that has built this city of iron, and cursed be those who would use him for their own ends. If he reigns unchallenged, the end for all will come soon enough.
Have they no refuge, no resource?
Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?
Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it not. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes beheld a solemn phantom draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him.
It was shrouded in a deep black garment, which concealed its head, its face, its form, and left nothing of it visible, save one outstretched hand.
The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. And when it came near him, Scrooge bent down upon his knee. For in the very air through which this spirit moved, it seemed to scatter gloom and mystery.
Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any spectre I have seen. But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear you company, and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?
The phantom moved away as it had come towards him. Scrooge followed in the shadow of its dress, which bore him up, he thought, and carried him along.
Why, this is the exchange.
I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead.
What has he done with his money?
He hasn't left it to me, that's all I know.
I know those men of business.
Business? Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business.
Jacob Marley, do they speak of you?
Now the spirit led Scrooge into an obscure part of the town. The ways were foul and narrow, the shops and houses wretched, the people half naked, drunken, slipshod, ugly.
Alleys and archways, like so many cesspools, disgorge their offences of smell and dirt and life upon the straggling streets, and the whole quarter reeked with crime, with filth and misery.
Oi, Joe! Open up!
Who is it?
Look here, old Joe, here's a chance. If we haven't all three met here without meaning it. Charwoman.
Laundress!
Undertaker's man.
We're all suitable to our calling. We're well matched. Come into the parlour.
Open that bundle, old Joe, and let me know the value of it. Speak out, play.
You be quiet. Undertaker's man, what you got?
Pencil case, sleeve buttons, brooch.
Nothing special. 6pence the lot. Who's next?
Boots, Joe! Good uns too! Couple of silver teaspoons!
Spoons.
Couple of bob. You disappoint me, lady and gentlemen, upon my word you do.
Look, Joe, look.
Joe went down on his knees for the greater convenience of opening the huge bundle, and having unfastened a great many knots, dragged out a large and heavy roll of some dark stuff.
What do you call this? Bed curtains?
Bed curtains.
You don't mean to say you took him down, rings and all, with him lying there?
Aye, and his blankets and the good shirt they were going to bury him in.
Ah.
If he wanted to keep him after he was dead, the wicked old screw, why wasn't he natural in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have had somebody to look after him when he was struck with death, instead of lying, gasping out his last there, alone by himself.
You were born to make your fortune.
Oh, spirit, the case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way. Merciful heaven, what is this?
He recoiled in terror, for the scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bed, a bare, uncurtained bed, on which, beneath a ragged sheet, there lay something covered up, which, though it was dumb, announced itself in awful language.
The room was very dark, too dark to be observed with any accuracy. A pale light rising in the outer air fell straight upon the bed, and on it, plundered and bereft, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this man.
The phantom's steady hand was pointed to the head. The cover was so carelessly adjusted that the slightest raising of it, the motion of a finger upon Scrooge's part, would have disclosed the face. He thought of it, felt how easy it would be to do, and longed to do it. but had no more power to withdraw the veil than to dismiss the spectre at his side.
If there is any person in the town who feels emotion caused by this man's death, show that person to me, Spirit, I beseech you.
The phantom spread its dark robe before him for a moment, like a wing, and withdrawing it, revealed a room by daylight, where a mother and her children were.
Caroline!
Oh, husband, what news?
News indeed.
Good or bad?
Bad, I suppose.
We are quite ruined then.
No, there is hope yet, my dear. He is dead.
Oh, thank God.
I know them, Spirit.
To whom will our debt be transferred?
I don't know. But before that time, we shall be ready with the money.
I advance them £50 at 30% compound.
And even though we were not, it would be bad fortune indeed to find so merciless a creditor in his successor.
Oh, my dear.
Surely there must be somewhere tenderness connected with this poor forsaken man.
Bob Cratchit.
Master Fred. Why, well met, sir, well met.
A sad time, though, eh, Bob?
You'd heard, then, sir, about my Tim?
Oh, my dear man. I thought we were speaking of...
Oh.
But now I see you do look a little...
Tim, he's at rest now.
Oh, Bob, I'm heartily sorry to hear it. Heartily sorry for your good wife, too. Please accept my sincerest condolences.
Thank you, sir. You always were a gentleman, sir. The most pleasant spoken.
My card. If I can be of any service to you in any way, that's where I live. Pray come to me.
No more, Spirit. I beg you. Merciful heaven, where is this?
They were at the iron gates of a churchyard.
Answer me one question, Spirit. Are these the shadows of the things that will be? Or are they shadows of things that may be only?
Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood.
Scrooge crept towards the headstone, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the neglected grave his own name.
No, Spirit! No, no! I am the man who lay upon that bed! Spirit, hear me, I am not the man I was! Why show me this, if I am past all hope?
For the first time, the hand appeared to shake.
Good Spirit, your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I yet may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life.
The kind hand trembled.
I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me, I may sponge away the writing on this stone.
Holding up his hands in a last prayer, Scrooge saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost.
Yes! And the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own.
Marley. Heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees. Oh, my bed curtains, they are not torn down, rings and all. They are here. I am here. There's the door by which the ghost of Jacob Marley entered. There's the corner where the ghost of Christmas present sat. There's the window where I saw the wandering spirits. It's all right. It's all true. It all happened. I don't know what to do. I'm as light as a feather. I am as happy as an angel. I am as merry as a schoolboy. I am as giddy as a drunken man. Oh, Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hello here. Whoop. Hello.
As the churches rang out the lustiest peals he had ever heard.
Oh, glorious, glorious.
Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist, clear, bright, jovial, stirring, cold. Cold, piping for the blood to dance to.
Glorious! Hey, you there, what's today, my fine fellow?
Today? Why, Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day! I haven't missed it! The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can. Of course they can. Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner?
I should hope I did.
Oh, an intelligent boy, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there?
What, the one as big as me?
Oh, what a delightful boy. It's a pleasure to talk to him.
It's hanging there now.
Is it? Go and buy it.
What?
Go and buy it and tell them to bring it back here. Come back with the man and I will give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown.
The boy was off like a shot. Only a steady hand on the trigger could have got off a shot half so fast.
Oh, I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim.
He dressed himself in all his best and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present, and walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile.
Great heaven, Mr. Scrooge. That is my name, and I fear after our altercation in my offices yesterday, it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your pardon, and will you have the goodness...
Lord bless me, my dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?
If you please, not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you.
The iron chill will melt away like ice beneath the sun, and every voice rejoices again. God bless us, everyone.
Ah, is your master at home, my dear?
Master and mistress are upstairs in the drawing room. Who may I say is calling?
Please don't trouble yourself. I'm here to see my nephew.
Sir, you can't go in there.
Nephew Fred! Oh, no, I'm most terribly sorry. I didn't mean to.
Bless my soul, Uncle Scrooge.
I've come to dinner, Fred. Will that be all right?
All right. Why, of course.
And may we play blind man's buff after dinner as usual?
But how do you know that we...
Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful unanimity, wonderful happiness.
But he was early at the office next morning. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late, that was the thing he had set his heart upon.
What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?
Oh, I'm very sorry, sir. I am behind my time.
Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please.
It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir.
Now, I will tell you what, my tardy friend. I am not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore... I am about to raise your salary. Shake my hand.
You're mad, sir. Don't come any closer. This is a very heavy ruler I have here.
No need for the ruler, Bob. It's all right.
Sir? Are you crying?
With joy, my good fellow, with joy and not unpleasurable sensation. Would you shake hands with me?
With all my heart. What has happened?
Oh, Bob, I've had a Dickens of a time. A Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. Come, we will discuss your affairs this very morning over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop. Make up the fires and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
With great pleasure, Mr. Scrooge, sir.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all, and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew.
Some people laugh to see me so altered, but I let them and take no heed. My own heart laughs, and that's good enough for me.
Iron chill will melt away like ice beneath the sun, and every voice rejoice again. God bless us
In A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, Scrooge was played by Robert Powell, The Ghost of Christmas Past by Sophie Thompson, and Jacob Marley and the Ghost of Christmas Present by Ron Cook. Mrs. Fezziwig was played by Tracy-Ann Oberman, Mr. Fezziwig by Patrick Brennan, Tiny Tim by Beatrice Jones, Fred by Shaun Mason, Mrs. Cratchit by Hannah Genesius, and Bob Cratchit by Paul Heath. Other narrative parts were played by members of the cast. The BBC Singers and the BBC Symphony Orchestra, leader Stephen Bryant, were conducted by Martin Andre. Orchestration was by Hugo González Pioli and Timothy Brock. The director was David Hunter. The producer, Anne Mackay. Adapted and composed by Neil Brand, A Christmas Carol is a co-production between Radio 4 and Radio 3.